A young man killed the last dragon in the world. He forged the dragon's bones into an unmatched sword, then bathed in its blood, making his skin invulnerable. Unexpectedly, a leaf fell on his back, becoming his only weakness. The story takes place in medieval Europe. The Huns advanced westward, and wars engulfed many nations. The proud kingdom of Burgundy struggled to survive. Their king set out to defend the borders. But suddenly, he was ambushed on the way. An arrow pierced his heart. Not long after, his body was carried back to the capital. Marshal Hagen, who had failed to protect the king, was filled with regret. Princess Kriemhild noticed his guilt. She secretly comforted Hagen. "My father's death is not your fault." Hagen looked at the woman he loved, suppressing his feelings. He swore to always protect the royal family. Soon after, Crown Prince Gunther ascended the throne. The kingdom was surrounded by threats. They desperately needed a strong ally. The easiest way to form an alliance was through marriage. The princes argued endlessly over this. Finally, King Gunther made a decision. He would marry his sister, Kriemhild, to Ardo of Lombardy, whose wife had just died in childbirth. By allying with Lombardy, they could strengthen Burgundy's eastern border. Gunther planned to marry off his sister in the summer. Though Hagen felt bitter, he obeyed the king's command. Hagen secretly told Kriemhild, hoping she would be ready. The princess knew that allying with the East was her father's wish, so she did not refuse the marriage. That night, thunder and lightning filled the sky. 11 foreign riders camped outside the city gates. They carried no banners, looking like wandering warriors. Even though they stayed outside, everyone felt the danger. The next morning, some strangers arrived at the gate. The princess observed them from hiding. She saw the face of a cloaked man change at will. Gunther welcomed their leader, who turned out to be Siegfried, son of King Siegmund. Their nations had once been allies. Young and full of fire, Siegfried immediately challenged Gunther to a duel. Hagen held back the king, because Burgundians never fought alone. They were a united family. If Siegfried wanted to challenge the king, he had to defeat them all first. Siegfried wasn't foolish enough to fight a whole group alone. So Gunther prepared guest chambers for Siegfried's men. But the princess felt uneasy about the cloaked man. His eyes were not human. Kriemhild recalled legends of ancient rulers. There were creatures of the night said to enter human dreams. To ease the princess's worry, Hagen watched Siegfried's men at night. They drank and celebrated carelessly. Only the cloaked man slipped into an alley and vanished into a dark warehouse. Hagen chased and caught him, but found only a few worn sacks. At that moment, a drunken Siegfried stumbled out of his chamber. Hagen warned, "There is no place for you here. Take your men and leave at once." But that midnight, Hagen was haunted by nightmares. The next day, a white horse went wild. Kriemhild ran after it. Worried, Hagen quickly followed. The princess failed to catch the horse. She confided in Hagen that she did not want to marry far from home. A few days later, Siegfried claimed to have had a prophetic dream. It foretold that Queen Brunhild of Iceland possessed magical powers from beyond the world. Everyone grew serious at this. But moments later, Siegfried laughed aloud, as if it were only a joke. Meanwhile, Kriemhild remained in the women's quarters. The flirtatious Siegfried forced his way in to meet her. He barged into her chamber and was immediately driven out. His jokes at the dinner table made Gunther uncomfortable. Gunther wanted to meet Queen Brunhild of Iceland. Hagen advised the king not to trust Siegfried. He urged the princess to stay home. Even without allies, Burgundy was strong enough. Gunther trusted Hagen and decided to cancel the marriage plan. Unexpectedly the next day, a corpse was found outside the city, stabbed to death. Hagen brought the news to the king. The Saxons and Danes had rebelled. They had reached the Rhine River. Burgundy was now isolated and powerless. The king ordered Hagen to speak with Siegfried, hoping the brave knight would join the war. If he agreed, Gunther was willing to marry the princess to him. For Burgundy's sake, Hagen had no choice but to obey. Hagen went to the guest palace but found only the cloaked man. He turned out to be a dwarf named Alberic. He noticed the dragon scars on Hagen's body. He revealed that it was Siegfried who killed the dragon, bathed in its blood for invulnerability, and forged its bones into the sword Balmung. But as he bathed, a leaf fell onto his back, leaving Siegfried with a single weakness. Before Hagen returned, Siegfried had already pledged to the king that he would wield Balmung for Burgundy. Before the great battle, Hagen bid farewell to the princess. Kriemhild knew it was Hagen who convinced the king to cancel her marriage. She asked why he held her back, but Hagen never revealed his true feelings. The next day, the army marched swiftly through the Rhine Valley. Hagen made a battle plan. He showed that though the Saxons and Danes were brave, they lacked discipline, so their army must stay orderly. But Siegfried didn't care. He always believed strength alone would win. Late at night, Hagen saw Siegfried ride into enemy lines. By morning, he returned with the Saxon king's head. The enemy lost heart without their leader. Siegfried brandished Balmung and led the charge. The soldiers ignored Hagen's orders and followed Siegfried. Hagen was forced to join. Though Siegfried was invincible, the other soldiers were only human. Hagen's best archer was killed due to Siegfried's recklessness. Desperate, Hagen was gravely wounded and lost an eye. Siegfried saved Hagen just in time. The war ended in victory. The people hailed Siegfried as a hero. Meanwhile, Kriemhild tended to the unconscious Hagen. But the victory feast was too loud. She pushed through the crowd, warning Siegfried not to disturb the spirits of the fallen. But Siegfried believed death was part of war. He refused to grieve in silence. He even suggested Alberic heal Hagen. When Alberic touched Hagen, Hagen's old memories resurfaced. He had come from the kingdom of Tranche. When the old Burgundian king sheltered him, he claimed a dragon destroyed his homeland. But the truth was different. Alberic revealed it was war that ruined Hagen's homeland. In fact, the great dragon had saved him. That was why Hagen bore the dragon's claw marks. When Hagen awoke, he visited the fallen soldiers. At their graves, Siegfried declared firmly that even if given a second chance, he would change nothing. When Kriemhild realized Siegfried was not power-hungry, her heart melted completely. She had once given Hagen a chance, but he never confessed his love. The princess finally followed Siegfried out of the city and saw the ruins of ancient wars. She always wondered why Alberic served Siegfried. Siegfried explained it was because he had slain Alberic's master, the last dragon. As days passed, the princess and Siegfried grew closer. Meanwhile, the Huns advanced step by step. Their leader, Etzel, conquered Lombardy. Burgundy needed strong allies. Gunther still yearned for Queen Brunhild of Iceland, hoping to win through ancient powers. His sister believed Gunther was under Alberic's influence, which was why he obsessed over Brunhild. So, when Siegfried left, she locked Alberic in a cage. Hagen discovered this and confronted Alberic. He said, "If you want freedom, tell me about the Queen of Iceland." Alberic explained that Siegfried was always drawn to the distant and unattainable. When he heard the legend of Brunhild the Invincible, he went to Eisenstein to meet her. Unexpectedly, they fell in love and spent a year together. But in the end, Siegfried left, breaking Brunhild's heart. Still, deep inside, he loved her. The next day, Hagen urged Kriemhild to stay away from Siegfried, but instead, she learned they planned to marry. Kriemhild knew Hagen distrusted Siegfried, but if they wed, Siegfried would fully belong to Burgundy. So, for Burgundy's sake, Hagen no longer opposed it. Kriemhild asked him to speak kindly to Gunther. Hagen obeyed, and Gunther agreed to the marriage, but with one condition. If Siegfried wished to marry Kriemhild, he must first win the heart of Queen Brunhild. If Burgundy gained the Valkyrie, they could surely repel the Huns. For the princess's hand, Siegfried swallowed his anger and accepted. Soon, a fleet sailed to Eisenstein, but a great storm struck, drowning most of Gunther's guards. Siegfried, who had been there before, knew the queen's rules. He ordered Hagen to lay down his weapons and follow a commander named Senua to meet the queen. Their palace lay beneath a volcano. The moment they entered the gate, they were thrown into sacks and beaten. When Hagen awoke, Gunther and Siegfried were gone. Only Senua stood nearby. Hagen quickly explained that his king only wished to wed the queen, but to win her heart, one must defeat her. Every challenger became a skeleton. Soon, Gunther appeared, clearly enchanted by the queen. With her gifted sword, Gunther swore to fight for her. Hagen didn't want him to die and planned to flee at dawn. But when Gunther refused, Siegfried admitted even he could not defeat the queen. Alberic, however, had a way. The three went to a cave. Alberic took blood from Hagen and Gunther, then cut Siegfried's back. Hagen realized that was his weak spot. Alberic then mixed their blood and pushed Siegfried and Hagen into the water. As they nearly drowned, Gunther drank all the blood at once, temporarily gaining Siegfried and Hagen's strength. Gunther emerged to challenge the queen. At Sinua's signal, Brunhild struck first. But Gunther now held Siegfried and Hagen's power. During the fight, Brunhild glimpsed Siegfried's eyes through Gunther's face. She froze for an instant and was struck down. Gunther claimed victory. Siegfried and Hagen rose from the pool. The divine power left Gunther. Brunhild kept her word and departed with her people. The group returned to Burgundy, only to find the city destroyed. The Huns had already attacked. Burgundy could not hold the borders. Hagen's troops scattered in panic. Villagers hid, afraid of being conscripted. The only hope was to join Brunhild's forces. Thus, both couples held their weddings on the same day. Hagen smiled to see the princess happy. But Siegfried and Brunhild exchanged deep glances. After the wedding, the queen realized Gunther was a liar. She vented her fury by thrashing Siegfried in the training yard. But with the enemy at the gates, she accepted her fate. On the eve of battle, Hagen saw the terrified soldiers weeping. He roused their spirits, telling them to place their faith in Brunhild. The Valkyrie would protect those willing to die. Even in death, their souls would reach the Hall of the Gods. On the day of battle, not one fled. The undefeated queen charged first, slaughtering the Huns. The enemy collapsed like an avalanche. Etzel had no choice but to retreat amid the cheers of victory. Siegfried's desire for Brunhild rekindled. The next day, Gunther received news of victory. The last Huns were driven from the border. The war was over. Siegfried and Brunhild openly teased each other. Hagen ignored it outwardly, but reminded Siegfried, "You left your father. I lost my home. Burgundy is now our home together. When you return, you must be faithful to Kriemhild." Siegfried embraced Hagen, promising to treat the princess well. Burgundy was at peace again. But Siegfried grew restless. One by one, his followers departed. He begged Kriemhild repeatedly to join him in roaming the world. But Kriemhild was a Burgundian princess. She could not leave her people. Meanwhile, Gunther's attitude towards Siegfried shifted. Siegfried's glory outshone the king's. Worse, Gunther realized Siegfried's closeness with Brunhild. At a celebration feast, Siegfried disrespected Gunther's sister. Gunther exploded, scolding and humiliating him as a mere vassal. Their relationship broke apart. Consumed by jealousy and anger, Gunther even doubted Hagen's loyalty when he tried to mediate. Then, Gunther revealed that the previous night, Brunhild had left the city secretly. He followed her and saw her meet Siegfried. Hearing this, Hagen could no longer contain himself and asked where Siegfried was. Gunther replied, "He comes and goes as he pleases." Even Kriemhild didn't know her husband's whereabouts. Her tears meant nothing to Siegfried. He cared nothing for the Burgundians' admiration. He was a wanderer. He would never change for anyone. Hagen understood the king's message. Siegfried would eventually destroy the royal order. To prevent that day, Hagen had to kill him. That day, Hagen invited Siegfried on a deer hunt in the forest. They brought down a white stag. In the castle, Kriemhild awoke in fright, struck by a terrible premonition. Meanwhile, Hagen had the chance to kill Siegfried from behind as he washed his hands. But instead, he tossed Balmung to Siegfried, challenging him to a fair duel. Though Siegfried was invulnerable, Hagen's harsh training gradually pressured him. Hagen forced him into a gorge and held him underwater. But Siegfried drew his sword from the river and stabbed Hagen's thigh. Wounded, Hagen was cornered. A cold blade touched his neck. He closed his eyes, ready for death. At that moment, Gunther appeared. He stabbed Siegfried from behind, killing him. Hagen rose and urged Gunther to leave quickly, lest he be discovered, for a king must not kill a hero. After Gunther left, Hagen saw Alberic standing nearby, but as he approached, the figure turned into a dead tree. Soon after, Hagen returned to the city with Siegfried's body. He declared he had slain him in a duel. The pregnant Kriemhild's heart shattered. Brunhild howled in grief. Hagen became everyone's enemy. Kriemhild cursed him to live long enough to serve Siegfried's child when he grew. That was the cruelest punishment for him. Loyalty, love, and ambition often mix into a dangerous poison. Sometimes your greatest enemy is not on the battlefield, but within your own heart. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss more epic tales.